Leap forward. All right, cold start. Headshot. First round of the day. See if you got it. Scenario. You're at the supermarket shopping for Twinkies, and then a rapscallion comes in about to do a no-no.
Hey, disconnected.
Right. You definitely made him mad. You got a line break. It's not good enough, though. Now, one reason I like to do that, see where you're at, right? So if you go to the flat range, whatever your carry handgun is, in this case, Glock 19 with a little bit more of a compact setup, I like the idea to test that out and see, okay, am I as dialed in as I think I am? And you get that haptic feedback instantly. A very cold start drill to begin with, going for a headshot. Now, why a headshot? Well, in my opinion, if there is the worst case scenario, if there is an active shooter and say they're wearing armor and they have a long gun, chances are the best thing you may got is like the face shot, especially if they're wearing a Kevlar helmet that's ballistically rated. So I think trending that standard is not a crazy thing, considering what we've seen in the past before from bad guys. And I think it's an important thing to try and work on and be pinpoint accurate under stress and duress. Ideally, that round should have gone right between the eyes, but I suck. So that's where we're at. NANI? All right, take it from the top. Technically, this will not be a cold start. I did some confirmation of 0 on the handgun, but I have my duty ammo in the gun, which is some G9. I'm gonna go for a cold start headshot. Scenario. You're at your local supermarket buying some bonbons or snack of your choice. And the local rapscallions now besiege the supermarket and you must defend. See where we're at. There we go. Right to the eye. I say, technically where the brain's at, he may not be dead instantly, or he might be. I'm not a doctor. I'm not Grantham.
Huh. That was violent.
All right, modified Dickens drill. Got my shot timer. 5 seconds, let's go. 10 rounds to the body as fast as we can if you do it under 5 seconds. NANI? Oh. Forgot. 10 rounds. My bad. Because we're not 40 yards away. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Did I fire 10 rounds? Am I retarded?
Maybe a little bit.
All right, from 20-ish yards away, modified Dickens. 10 rounds, 5 seconds.
I need more bullets! I need more bullets!
I felt really slow. Felt very, very slow. It's not my best work. It's the importance of always training with your handgun. Handguns are the hardest, I think, of all the guns to shoot. I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not the best with them. There are much better handgun shooters than I, so go listen to them. Ladies, gentlemen, and my Elon Musk cat cyborg girls.
This is Elon Musk.
Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a little bit of a discussion on the everyday carry. Now, on the main channel, Managerial Results, the channel that always steals my ideas here at Managerial Outcomes, I usually talk about EDC probably once a year. And so I've beaten the subject to death. So I figured we'll put it on the second channel for those concerned. And typically, this subject is for probably newer gun guys. By now, a lot of the more seasoned guys that carry handguns have their routines, their preferred weapon system, everything they're going to carry pretty dialed in. Now, if you are a seasoned person, there may be something you glean. Probably isn't. So just click off and go watch like Mr. Beast or something. I don't know.
These nuts taste so good.
Now, this is a good topic for the newer guys that are just trying to get into the firearm space. Now, why should you listen to me? You shouldn't. I'm a dude on the internet. Why would you trust anything you see on the internet? Everything here is made up. It's not real. It's fake. It's fake news. All of it. Now, the topic of everyday carry is one that I'm rather passionate about. I think it's the most practical form of self-defense within our safe country that is the United States. Now, for those abroad, I don't know the legality and the hoops you have to jump through, but I'm more familiar with the American justice system and your rights and maybe the threats you may be facing as a good American citizen on God's green earth. That being said, I think there's important pieces of kit that could go into your survivability. Though we may not cover the entire gauntlet of the everyday carry, we'll definitely be covering the part where it's the most practical in my opinion, but there's still some very practicality to the other parts. It's a lot of I do this when I don't know the words I want. It seems like I know what I want. So with everyday carry, I think everyone always instantaneously gravitates towards the handgun. The thing about the weapon system itself, over the years, And of course, I'm partial to certain brands and handguns, but what I've kind of gathered, it's a lot of personal preference. If you're someone that is like, I'm going to get a Springfield XD, I would say why? But then again, if you could shoot really good with it, if you could outshoot me with the Springfield XD, who am I to judge you? I still will probably judge your firearms choice. I'm partial to the Glocks. I know guys that can shoot better than me go for the MMPs. Today, guys like Hunter Constantine, he's on the mind. I mean, we're using one of his belts. That being said, I've also carried a number of different handguns, trying them out for videos, and then also everyday carry them, or concealed carry them, that is. Now, in the state of Arizona, we have constitutional carry, which means you don't need a CCW to carry, unlike other states. Now, you also don't need a CCW in those states if you're not a coward. But that's on you for legality reasons if you get in trouble, so act accordingly, because the law does play a lot into what we're talking about here today. If you're good with whatever handgun, if you're good with like a black powder 6-shooter, more power to you. If that's what you have to carry because you're a convicted felon, I get you. The handgun, I think, is often overrepresented in a lot of these videos because we are more so a firearms-based channel. That being said, I think there's a lot of other things on your person that's kind of some good food for thought. I think another thing that gets overplayed is the blade. That being said, I may not know what I don't know. I'm not a big blade guy. I've tried carrying concealed fixed blades before. I found myself thinking, why do I do this? And it's in rare occasions that I will. Say if I'm wearing like clothes that has a belt and I want to have everything inside my hips. It's getting to levels of nerdiness and defensive preparation that I think are very high. Now, typically I just carry a pocket knife on me. It's a pretty plain Jane Kershaw. It's like my dad knife because it has flat heads and Phillips heads on it, and I can use it as a screwdriver, which I find very useful when I'm doing my dad activities, as well as be able to cut boxes open. My defensive plan does not revolve around me having to fillet someone. God forbid I'd have to do that. Ideally, I'd fill that bad person with lead. That's the worst case, right? I'm not like fighting in the trenches of Iwo Jima where I need a K-bar. If it comes to that, then maybe we'll have like I'm getting like stabbed. I'm like, oh, I should have had a better knife. Who knows? You can learn from my mistakes if I get stabbed to death in a knife fight. Now, another important piece of kit will be the flashlight. Now, this to me is a non-negotiable. I'm not going to tell you which flashlight brand to go with. Personally, I went with a Mod Light. I used a Mod Light when I was a beat cop, and I really liked it. They're great tools for self-defense. So why are they a great tool? It gets dark every day here, unless you live in like in Alaska. Apparently when it never gets dark during that time of year, but it still gets dark inside structures. So you're welcome. Now, just because you may be going about your business during the daytime doesn't mean things can get dark. Maybe power goes out. Maybe you go into a dark structure for whatever reason. Having a flashlight on you is a pretty good thing. Now you're probably asking, hey, managerial outcomes, what about my weapon-mounted flashlight? Well, that's where things get tricky with the law, because then you could get hemmed up with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Now, another beautiful thing about a powerful handheld flashlight is that they can be deterrents against people that want to do you harm. Maybe you don't know their actions, but it can bring their actions to light. And they're just a great tool for scanning and seeing what's going on. I can use this Mod Light flashlight and beam Austin down there with the power of the sun. Hey, can you see me? Well, yeah, I got a flashlight. No, duh. Is it pretty bright? Yeah. You can kind of see just how nice it is. Scan. Oh, hey, what's that guy doing? Hey, do you want my wallet? Hey, what are you doing? Now you can see in that humorous example that when we beam the light, say you're in a parking garage at night or something like that, right? And someone's acting weird towards you or your family of which you are responsible to defend, you can bring their actions to light, right? Either maybe they're like, hey, I just need help changing a tire. And it's like, all right, I guess. Or they were planning something more nefarious and now they either stop doing that or they have to commit to it. And if they commit to it, well, then you got an app for that. All right, that app is called your handgun. A beautiful thing about handguns, this is gonna be a Glock 19. It's all Gucci'd out, right? I got Jaegerworks slide cuts and all that stuff, and then laser work and stippling. We got a TLR 7A on here. Now, this is gonna be, for me, it's more comfy of a weapon light than saying a Surefire X300. A lot of this kind of goes into the comfortability of what you're carrying. I don't know if that's a real word, but I just made it up. So, though this weapon light's not as good, it'll still work in the dark, and I'll still be able to see what I want to shoot. It's not gonna be as good as a Surefire X300. I wouldn't necessarily use just say for like a duty outside the waistband style setup. I'll just go with the Surefire X300. And then, of course, now in our modern day and age, I think we have probably the best red dot ever made would be the Aimpoint Acro. Arguably, I'd say it's a very good red dot, especially for the technology. I think there are some brands pushing the boundaries like Holosun, but I love me my good aimpoint acro. Great force multiplier, kind of large profile for a more compact handgun setup, but it's really just, for me, it's really hard to beat. These things are kind of bomb-proof in a lot of ways. I have dropped one before and it broke, but I sent it off, got it fixed. Kind of to be expected of the smaller red dots. They're not going to be as rugged and reliable as, say, like a Aimpoint Pro, but nature of the beast. Aimpoints on handguns, kind of God's gift to mankind. They're a beautiful luxury. I'd encourage you, if you have the coin, because how often you carry your handgun, I think it's a worthy investment. Statistically speaking, you're going to be carrying your handgun more with you everywhere you go, as opposed to, say, a rifle. I mean, last time I went to Trader Joe's, you see someone open carrying a rifle. Doesn't happen as much, right? With a handgun, you typically have it on you way more. Now, another thing that goes into that is a good holster. For this holster, I'm running a Halo Strategic Incog. I think they collaborated with Safariland for this one. And then we have a spare mag. Now, this could be a lot. I would say a lot of guys would consider it a lot. I've seen that school of thought, and I, in some ways, agree. If you're just going to like Applebee's and you're expecting to get in a crazy huge gunfight where you need a spare mag, I don't know what to tell you, right? I personally like the idea of it. It makes me feel safe and give me the warm fuzzies. I don't mind it. I'll rock a spare mag. I like that. Now, this is all getting into the use of lethal force, where someone is committing and putting your life in danger based on their own actions. If you have to neutralize someone with lethal force, typically you're going to get charged with homicide. The cops are going to show up and they're going to be like, all right, what happened? At which point you say nothing. Don't talk to them. Their job is to investigate a crime of which you are suspected of committing, which would be homicide. If you did your job, if your shot placement's good. At that point, you need to contact these people that went to school for a really, really long time. I would encourage you to have one on retainer, but if you can't afford it, it's okay. The state will provide you the ones that aren't good. I would say you're going to want the guy that's working on his third beach home as your lawyer. It's probably the better lawyer. The state providing lawyers, they're not going to get you the good lawyers, but you are entitled to a lawyer. They're going to Mirandize you. Chances are you're going to get whisked off to jail and have to maybe spend some time in the clinker. Ideally, I don't know how it's going to play out based on your local cops and laws and stuff like that. In the perfect world, the police would show up. They would see an obvious situation where you were in danger, hopefully an obvious situation, and they'd say, oh, this guy tried to kill you. Are you okay? Oh, how much ammo did you use? And they pull up their mag or they top you off. Here, I got plenty. Here you go. And then you go on your way. And the cleanup crew shows up and they go bury that guy or cremate him or whatever. That's the ideal world. Now, there's the way things are. There's the way you wish things would be. We live in the way that things are. It's just not how our world works. Statistically speaking, I hope you never have to experience any of that. I hope ideally you can live a nice, peaceful life. No one tries to harm you. But the nature of the world that we live in, it is rather chaotic, even though statistically speaking, we also live in a very safe country. It'll be made safer because of citizens like yourself, individuals like yourself that take into your own responsibility your self-defense. Now, there's a few other items I think are very important, one of which being the belt. Now, the belt line is kind of often overshadowed for new guys. They get all the cool stuff. You get your cool pocket knife. You get your cool handgun and holster setup. You spend all this time tricking the gun out. You get your cool slide cuts, because what's a handgun without cool slide cuts? You got your red dot, your flashlight. You're into this gun well over $1,000 at this point. And then you put it on your body and you're wearing some janky belt. Now, fellas, the belt you wear is important. I've gone through a number of belt iterations. A lot of belts I like. I think as long as the belt is sturdy and rigid in the right places, you should be okay. I'm rocking the Hunter Constantine carry belt today. Now, Hunter, I've had him on the channel before. He is a pro shooter. He's pretty good. And I'm pretty happy that he made his own belts to do so. He's even kind enough to sponsor this little belt segment that I'm talking about. Big belt is coming for him. Now, Hunter is a pretty good shooter, and he made this belt, and it has rigidity where you want it for your handgun and then stretchiness where you need it on the rear. I appreciate that about the belt. It's actually a pretty comfy carry of a belt, and you can adjust it as you need to. So it stretches, but it also has rigidity. I'm a big fan of comfort when it comes to everyday carry. I think the comfier your setup is, the more likely you are to have it on you for longer. So a big thank you to him for sponsoring this little segment of the video. I'd encourage you to go check out his website. It'll be linked down below for checking out his belts. Yet again, very good shooter, much better than I am, and I'm happy that he would dive into this world of making equipment for other shooters. Gentlemen, we also have to think, do you have a grip on your life? Of course you don't. You watch this channel. Well, luckily for you, I can help you get a grip on your weapons platform. Thanks to this video sponsor, Handle It Grips. Handle It Grips offering a wide variety of options
when it comes to your multitude of handguns, giving you a more aggressive texture with different options, as well as a different kind of textures that they offer. If you have Glocks, Beretta PX4s, just about anything you can think of, they have cut up to throw on your desired handgun. They can't make you a better shooter, but they can give you a much more rugged and aggressive grip. And of course, a big thank you to Handle It Grips. Link for them will be in the description down below.
A weird little item that I often think about is a good tool are AirPods. Now, AirPods is one that you wouldn't necessarily consider. Now, if there is a situation that is some sort of chaotic event, I typically think of like car accidents, stuff like that, where you have more time to respond to what's going on. You can pop your AirPods in, dial 911, and you can start talking to a dispatcher. You can relay them info, where you are, what you're doing, what you're observing, what's going on, right? It can feed that info to the first responders, say the firefighters or cops showing up. I think they're a very useful tool. Now, the reason they're so useful, they can help keep your hands free. Duh. So you pop those AirPods in and you'll be good to go. It works ideally if you're in the city with good service. If you're out in the boonies with no service, then it's kind of like, forget it. But food for thought, right? So as much as guns are cool in the zeitgeist that we are in, what I worry about getting overshadowed is medical gear. Now, an ankle IFAK I find to be a good alternative. It's not going to work good if you wear skinny jeans, so you may have to get some looser fitting clothing, but I think it's a very important tool. At the very least, having a tourniquet. I'm a big fan of tourniquets, right? What happens more often in non-society are car accidents. Chances are you're not going to get into a rolling gunfight, but if you do, at least if you get zipped up a little bit, you might have a chance if you have some more medical gear on. I love the idea of having tourniquets on me. Now that I have a growing family, definitely going to have the option of wanting to have different style of tourniquets for smaller limbs. I also encourage you to look into taking a class that revolves around this style of medical care, right? IFAK training. I think it's all very important stuff. Having the know-how of how to apply a tourniquet, how to stuff a wound, stuff like that. It's not crazy. Ideally, it's just stopping the bleed until they can get to a trauma center where they get fixed up by someone that's also working on buying their third beach home. That sounds pretty fair. This one's going to be a Riker nylon gear. I got this from Independence Training. I've used it for actually years now. It's going on many years of me carrying this thing. I know in Arizona, it gets really hot, so you may be wearing shorts, and if you want to have this around you to some capacity, you could always maybe throw it in a backpack or something. However you do it, you're a grown man, I'm assuming, so figure it out. If you could pan down, Colton, I would say the ankle IFAK blends in pretty good on your ankle. It's a good little thing to have on you. I think it's a good sign of a well-rounded, disciplined individual if they have all their bases covered, right? In a way, we have less lethal with a flashlight, we have lethal with a handgun, a well-rounded handgun that is, and then we have medical covered. And then you also have a way to communicate, right? Your AirPods, smartphone. There are factors that now go into everyday carry, the extreme of violence. Now, another thing to consider with this subject, right? You're fully bought in, you got all the cool guy stuff, and say, God forbid, something does happen, right? There's an active shooter. You may run the risk of being shot by someone else, not just the active shooter, whether it's another armed citizen or a member of law enforcement, and you truly have to weigh that cost. Just because you know you're a good guy doesn't mean someone else knows you're a good guy. In one of those situations, it's a very chaotic thing. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of information being spun about, and you may be lost in that shuffle of info. There was a case where a guy responded, an armed citizen took out an active shooter. The police showed up and then killed the guy that took out the active shooter. That breaks my heart, but it's a really bad circumstance. It sucks, man. It really, at the end of the day, it sucks. But that's the world we live in. So there is a lot more to it, right? And you have to have a good head on your shoulders for this stuff, too. You don't need to insert yourself into certain situations that don't call for you, right? If there are two grown men and they want to duke it out, all right, that's fine. You can call the cops, let them know, hey, these guys are fighting. You don't need to insert yourself and put yourself in harm's way. If there's a grown man beating up on a woman or a child, that's where I, based on my moral beliefs, would jump in and put myself at risk to protect those that cannot defend themselves. Now, you still may face legal repercussions there. If you look what happened at New York, where that individual took it upon himself, a Marine Corps vet, to stop a crazy guy on a train, then he's the one that goes to jail. So society is not always going to go in your favor, but at least at the end of the day, you know you did the right thing, even if it costs you maybe your freedom. That's something you have to weigh about this. Hopefully you live in a place where they don't have crazy laws and beliefs like that. Hopefully it's like, hey, thanks for stopping someone from doing a bad thing. So there's a lot more to it than just having a handgun, right? Just because you have a handgun doesn't mean you're now impervious to the threats of the world. You still have to get situational awareness. Now, this is what I would call a much heavier loadout. You can probably get a little bit more intense with it if you want to have body armor, so sort of soft coverage on you, depending what you're doing. And then, in theory, you could also have, say, a backup gun. I don't know a lot of guys that carry backup guns. Typically, those guys will maybe opt for having a spare magazine. Typically, that's what I do. I do know of guys that have done it before, where they have an ankle gun of some kind. I typically don't go that route. I'm not against it. I don't see the negatives of it. Another thing to consider, though, if you do get into a scuffle with someone, just because they're your guns doesn't mean you get to use them. So act accordingly. Another thing to think about, too, is if you do have to employ that handgun, knowing, of course, the firearm safety rules, a big thing being knowing your target and what's beyond it. That's where things start to get hairy, especially in a city situation. It's a lot to break down and digest when you have milliseconds to react. So a good way to get ahead of this, I would definitely say do some training, do some force on force. See where you're at physically. A big thing too is physical fitness, because if you have an adrenaline dump or a level of stress spike that you've never experienced before, it's going to do funny things to your body and how you see things. You're going to get maybe locked in with tunnel vision. Your heart rate's going to elevate like crazy. You're going to experience an adrenal dump. If you've never experienced an adrenaline dump before, I would encourage you to find some safe way to do so. Maybe go skydiving or something. A good way to get around this is being physically fit. And then once you do that, or once you're in the process of that, also learning how to fight. Now, one thing I don't talk about often, I'm guilty of this too, is not training enough, probably be some sort of hand-to-hand martial art. A lot of guys are big into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's like the classic Joe Rogan topic. I think there are good merits there, especially for the law enforcement guys when it comes to restraining people in a very safe way. I'm guilty of not training that enough. I think maybe I lean too much on physical fitness and not enough of the employment of how to properly handle someone. And I think that would just even add to your confidence. That's something I'm guilty of and I need to work on myself. I think if you can cover all those things, right, I think you'd be a pretty well-rounded individual. You have the lethal covered, you work on your hand-to-hand stuff, your martial art, and then you also have your medical stuff covered. And then, of course, having a good head on your shoulders to digest what's going on. Do you need to insert yourself in a situation, yes or no? If you do so, what could be the legal ramifications? These are all things you have to think about rather quickly. Are you the right person to insert yourself? If there's a 6'4" guy maybe being crazy and you're like 5'4", 120 pounds soaking wet, you're not gonna be able to take that guy on in a hand-to-hand situation. If you start getting beat up and you smoke that dude with your handgun, you inserted yourself into a situation that could have been considered for the police, and then now you get in trouble. So it's kind of some food for thought, right? I do love this topic. I think it's one of the most practical topics for a lot of us gun guys. As much as I love the cool Gucci long guns and burning it down at the flat range and doing long range stuff, statistically speaking, I always have a handgun on me, or I always have these items on me for my self-preservation and preserving the life of my family, of which I'm ultimately responsible for. So if you are an experienced shooter and you stuck around, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If it's sound advice, I'll enjoy it. Let me know if it's bad advice, I'll let you know. If you're someone that's still very new to this, and hopefully you are someone new to this, I was watching this and I can impart some knowledge on you. It's still all kind of surface level. There's really more you can get into it, and a good way to kind of like get reps without having to do anything is just mental reps. Typically a cycle I find with gun owners, a lot of experienced guys, is like you have this blissful ignorance of everything's like fine and there's nothing bad that's ever going to happen. You start to learn the way of the world, that it's actually chaotic and anything bad that can happen probably will happen, and you become very worried about everything, the government, crime, yada yada yada. Then you realize you can't control what you can't control. You can only react to what life gives you, and then how you react is up to you. So I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. This was a good little refresher course for my guys that maybe just be getting in this topic. If you found this, I appreciate you. I have nothing else for you guys. As always, I'll catch you on the flip.
I need more bullets! I need more bullets!